Hello, welcome. Hello, welcome to MCFC 9320 group. Thanks for joining us. I'm delighted tonight that we've got Sam Lee from The Athletic with us, Anne-Marie, Stanislav, and also Alex. How are you guys?
All good.
All good?
Yeah,
recovering, but good overall.
So, we've got to go straight into the game on Saturday. Anne-Marie, what's your thoughts on that? And remember, we don't swear.
No, we don't swear. For me, it was the wrong team selection. I can't understand why we didn't play Fernandinho or Rodri, and why we played the most not informed player in Sterling. Which meant that we had to put Phil in a different position where he's been flying it down the left wing. For me, I think too many players maybe were overawed by the occasion, because I don't believe we saw the best of any of our players on Saturday night.
Sam, right, let's cut to the chase. Pep's come in for an absolute battering, hasn't he? Since the defeat, about wrong tactics, he overthinks things. Really, the only one change I would have made, I'd have probably brought Fernandinho in instead of Sterling, and I'd have put Foden to the left. What kind of things have you been hearing? Because you was over in Porto for the final. What kind of things have you been hearing, pal?
Well, in what sense? Obviously, the players are gutted. You don't need to tell me that. You could see that from the TV pictures. I think the difference this year, after Lyon last year, Guardiola was so disappointed and kind of, I don't know, whatever. He didn't speak to the players afterwards, but this time he went around the hotel and said, look, congratulations, we've had a great season. I think he genuinely feels that they played well, which when he said the media, I think we had a good game and we created some really good nearly chances, he called them, or enormous nearly chances. He just think he was putting a brave face on it, but I think he does think they played quite well. I agree with you, and I guess if anyone who's followed my work or my opinions at least knows I'm a big Pep fan. I've always, like in the first season when things were difficult and everyone was kind of getting on his back, I was like, look, it's worth the pain, it's a process, all that kind of thing. I always try to explain what he tries to do. If it doesn't work, I'll ask him and try and explain it to other people. When the crosses were going in the box last season, I was trying to say why he's doing it. But I'm with you guys on this one. In terms of the changes, like you say, Fernandinho for Sterling, you make it sound simple, and it makes it sound like it's only a little change. But that would have been the whole difference, wouldn't it? Like that's what everybody expected going in. That's what would have been the team from the PSG game, more or less the team from the Dortmund games, played the same way as the rest of the season. And now look, there's people who've got a better footballing brain than me. On Twitter, there's good threads about the tactical things he was worried about and what he needed to do. And if he'd have gone with the normal team, I say, the team that got them to the final, they would have had problems. But I don't see how, after a season of saying how, the success has been built on being patient, keeping everyone close together, not conceding counterattacks, using the ball like slowly and then changing the rhythm, saying, they're not a team to play on counterattacks and running up and down the pitch. Why change in the final? And, even if those tactical reasons did make sense, which I'm sure they do because the bloke's a genius. I know Gundogan played really well there 2 years ago, but it was 2 years ago. Like you need to have the rhythm. And Sterling, as Anne-Marie says, he's just not been in form. Like what do you expect?
One thing what really concerned me, Sam, was, and it was pretty much universal, with City fans, is, we're going to turn up on Saturday, we're going to beat Chelsea because the past two times we played them, we've not been full strength, we're just messing about with Chelsea's head a little bit. That was a dangerous game to play. Considering.
Yeah, I don't think City were overconfident though. I think like maybe the fans were, and I thought City would win. If they turned up and played their normal game, which obviously they didn't. But if they had, I thought that they would have had enough to win, and I didn't think the two previous games had that much of a bearing on it because, like you said, there were much changed teams. I'm sure the team weren't playing a dangerous game. I'm sure there was no complacency there. And I think that's why Guardiola actually picked that second string team for the league game, because he didn't want any complacency. Because if they'd have beaten them, he didn't want the players to think this is going to be easy. But in hindsight, if he'd have played the players and tried what he tried on Saturday, maybe it didn't work. But
it just seemed from the word go, Rudiger wanted to do Kevin De Bruyne, and eventually it did him with. I thought that should have been a red card. That I don't know why it wasn't looked at proper on VAR or anything like that. Stanislav, you was actually over at the game. What was your thought? What was your thoughts on not just the atmosphere there, but the game, mainly the game itself, that 90 minutes? How intense was it?
Well, I expected more from the players, but however, everyone was upset with the starting lineups. I knew that Sterling didn't have to play. Unfortunately, Kai Walker was underperforming, and if I would pick the starting lineups, I would put Fernandinho instead of Sterling and Cancelo, because I'm not sure if you noticed, probably you have, but in the first half, the zone of Kai Walker was empty in maybe for 20-25 minutes, and Mason Mount and Ben Chilwell made whatever they want, and that's how the goal went in, because no one was there, no Kai Walker, no Fernandinho, and obviously,
Alex, they just did us, didn't they? Really, they just. I think the two victories over us previous to Saturday, I think that give them more confidence, and especially with it being touted around that we were just going to turn up and possibly beat them. Surely that was ammunition for Thomas Tuchel to pin on the dressing room door, wasn't it?
I totally agree. I think the story about having this psychological advantage was absolutely true. I wasn't a fan of losing to them, even though we were going to win the league eventually. But why lose to them? They beat us in the FA Cup, and they got to know that we are their rivals in the Champions League final. Why not just beat them, win the league, and go totally? I wouldn't say relaxed, but pretty confident. I can't really pick any player that stood out on Saturday. I think all of them underperformed. Just didn't look like the usual City that we're seeing this season.
Yeah,
unfortunately. So
Sam, everybody thought it was going to be an Aguero fairy tale, didn't they? He was going to come on.
Hoped for it, yeah.
It was another Aguero moment. Want to be.
Yeah, but I mean, even by the time he came on, it looked desperate, didn't it? It didn't look like they were creating a load of chances. It was always, when they were doing long throws in the end, it would have had to have been the ball falling in the right place and somebody just to sweep it in. But it would have been like a Hail Mary kind of thing at that point, because it wasn't like they were knocking at the door. It looked like, and it felt like the game was up when he came on anyway. And by that point, it was just, hope for the best, especially when the 7 minutes were added on. But in reality, they didn't really have anything, did they? City, unfortunately, it's a huge disappointment, but that was just how it panned out.
Yeah, it's a lot's been said, since the game, in particular, Pep's had absolute pelters. I think a little bit of perspective's got to be brought into it, though, and Sam, because winning the double, it's not too shabby. It's been a brilliant season for us. The run we've gone on. That's in my opinion, the Premier League is the hardest league in the world to win. We've done that. We did it quite comfortably in the end, considering the start we've had. Champions League it's a lottery, really. If anybody can beat anybody, as we often see.
It's difficult to balance the two things, isn't it? But I think both just exist at the same time. Losing the Champions League final doesn't make everything that came before it any worse. Everything that happened before, everything that was celebrated at the Etihad last week with the trophy lift, and obviously with fans at Wembley as well, that all still happened. The mid-season turnaround and playing the best football in the league and doing everything without a recognised striker, and Diaz's impact and Foden's goals, Anfield, it still happened. It was still enjoyable. It was still enough to win the title, the third title in 4 years. That all still happened. Somebody was saying to me earlier on, if City had gone out of the Champions League 3 weeks ago in the semi-finals, it would have been gone down as a great season, because there'd have been progress in the Champions League. That semi-final disappointment would have been long forgotten. The most recent thing would have been Aguero's farewell, and everyone would have been much happier. So, I mean, to get to the final, I'm not going to say it doesn't matter that they lost. Of course it does, and I can't fully personally understand all the fans' disappointment, but I've got my own disappointment, which I know isn't the same. But like I say, it can't take away from all the other good stuff. Like the pouters that Guardiola was getting after the game, they're kind of understandable. But I think anybody who wants him to go, I'm sure they don't now, 48 hours later. But anybody who wants him to go is barking up the wrong tree, because he's the best thing to happen to the club in years.
Yeah, well, we normally do our podcast on a Sunday night, but we delayed it tonight because we felt there was too much hysteria going around and stuff like that. So we just needed, as a City fan, as groups, we just need to calm it down a little bit, because like you say, anybody who's calling for Pep said, it's just absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
And Marie, you've heard a lot of people, calling for Pep said and stuff like that. And
I've seen it in our group this weekend, and it's disappointing, because people are forgetting what he's done, and actually what they're losing sight of is that we're watching football that is out of this world.
Sam, Anne-Marie, in our Facebook group, Anne-Marie is the Simon Cowell. Anybody swears or goes out, she's there straight on the buzzer, they're gone. So,
well, I'm having to be on best behaviour tonight, because my podcast yesterday was full of effing and jeffing, and it was all me. It wasn't the most professional one I've ever done, but I'm on best behaviour tonight, don't worry.
Yes.
What was most disappointing at the weekend, and I've seen it on Sky News today, both Sterling and Walker received quite a bit of online racist abuse this weekend, and that's got to stop. And what's disappointing for me is that it's our fans doing it as well. I think it's a disgrace. It's a game
that will never ever stop, Sam, until each person who goes on social media is verified with a blue tick, where they can prove that who they are, rather than say, for instance, Twitter will ban somebody and then they'll just set up another account with another fake email address. So the racism and the abuse will carry on until that happens, isn't
it? I guess so. I'm not sure if that's ever going to happen. And there's a need for anonymity in some cases, but it's like if you fix that problem, then you get less. It's not so bad in our country where you can protest and have your say, but in other countries like in the Middle East or in Russia, you sometimes need anonymity. So it's a difficult one, but yeah, there's no one greater. There's no problem greater than the other. It's, I don't know, like work emails. Like a work email could help, but ultimately it's the same kind of thing. You could still be identified, for the people who use their anonymity for good, of course. I mean, I wasn't prepared to talk about that tonight. I don't know what the solution is. I'm not sure there is one.
No, it's a very difficult one, especially the amount of money what gets pumped into these social media companies. So, season's over now. It's been reported. There's been some. You've also, and I'm glad you've come on. You've been misquoted to some extent with an article. What you've been, what you brought out today, and some of the.
That's kind of normal. I'm getting used to it bit by bit. It wasn't. I don't think it's not been too misquoted, but little bits anyway. I'm not going to pretend that everything has been, because it's just how it is. But yeah, sorry, go on.
Yeah, it's because what some, not just City fans, I think fans in general, just because they don't like something that, say, a journalist puts in their social media feeds and stuff like that, straight away it gets misquoted. Journalists and that receive abuse and stuff like that. Well, if you've got a clear indication, you've got it from pretty much the horse's mouth that Raheem Sterling's unhappy, Laporte is unhappy, and so on and so forth, you've got a right to put that out. As much as it's up to us whether we want to believe it or not. But what a lot of people don't understand is you do have your contacts, and that's your job, that's your profession. So all you're doing is your job.
Yeah, but also I always try and do things in the right context as well. And I'd like to point out as well, fair play to The Athletic. I don't think any other company, possibly apart from Goal, where I was before, would let me write this story in like 1,700 words and say, actually, while there are players unhappy, it can be normal. It's obviously not affected them this season. Loads of, I did an hour-long podcast, probably about 25 minutes on the game, 35 minutes on this. So I have been given a great opportunity to say, well, this is the case. This is all the story around it. And obviously, I couldn't say it's the end of the world, even if I wanted to, because the thing that amazed me, and the thing that I've said on the podcast, and the thing I was telling people over the weekend when I was speaking to mates about this in Porto, is when I was told this kind of stuff, I was as surprised as you are. Do you know what I mean? Like, because the initial reaction must be, that can't be true. Like, because we understand football and the football dynamics as if you've got an unhappy dressing room or some unhappy players in the dressing room, you're thinking of a Mourinho, Tottenham or Man United situation where their team doesn't play well, the manager gets sacked halfway through the season. And that's how we understand things. But the best thing about the City team, well, not the best thing, but one of the good things is, even despite some of these complaints from, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 players, they've still managed to keep rolling and still going. And like, this is why I appreciate it would look negative after the Champions League final, but it was the case anyway beforehand, you know.
No,
and even if they'd won the Champions League, it would, you know, the plans would still be the same.
Absolutely, I totally agree. And you know, something, if a player is happy, you know, not getting much game time, as a fan, I've got an issue with that, because I'm knocking on the manager's door, regardless of what manager and stuff like that. You know, it almost seems that that players who are knocking on the, you know, say I'll use a Gabriel Jesus, because you know, Stanislav, he's not sorry, Alex, he's not a Gab Jesus fan, are you, Alex?
Really?
And was he one of the players you quoted, Sam?
Right. So, I mean, it's difficult, and I don't want this to go on for an hour and keep you all. And also, if anybody wants to hear me talk about it in proper depth, there's our podcast as well, which is free. Even though it's on The Athletic, it's free. So, I mean, there's been some kind of misquoting. So, like, but I've only seen one aggregated tweet that was misquoted, and that was saying Cancelo and Bernardo are considering their futures, and that's not what I've said. But there's like a bit of a sliding scale, because you've got, like you say, you've got players who can be unhappy, but still perform. You know, like, even though Laporte is probably one of the most unhappy and is probably the most likely to leave, he's actually played really well, hasn't he? And I've said many times this season, fair play to him for when coming back into the team, he's got back towards his level, hasn't he? And obviously Guardiola's gone with Stones and Diaz because neither of them have done anything to lose their place. But whenever Laporte's come in, he's done a job. He's not let it affect him. But that just goes to show that
he's the most likely to leave.
I think so, yeah. But I mean, I think he's wanted to go basically since he lost his place in the team. The other thing is about this is it's difficult as a writer to say this is what is going to happen or what might happen, because as we know, it's not the easiest transfer market this summer, is it? So, and even in the case of, I gave the example on the podcast of Bernardo Silva, but this is just a hypothetical, because let's just say you had Bernardo Silva as somebody who's had a great season and somebody whose stock is high. Because if you say Jesus or Sterling, you might have teams going, I'm not sure about those guys who've not had great seasons, but for argument's sake, let's say Bernardo Silva. How much would you sell him for? City fans would say, well, I guess City fans would say no chance at all. But I don't know, 100 million or something. But who's got that 100 million? Like, it's difficult, isn't it? But with Laporte, I could see that happening. I mean, with Sterling, I could see it happening. But again, I'm not sure where he would go. But this is why, fortunately, the Athletic gave me 1,700 words to kind of explain the whole thing, rather than just say loads of players are unhappy, it's a disaster, blah blah. Because there's so many different layers to it.
So, yeah, I can understand some of them outgoings. You know, as a City, like after the euphoria after us losing, is that a nice glass of white, that, Sam?
It's white. It's white wine. It's elderflower, and it's tonic water. Nice and refreshing on a hot day.
Yeah. So, yeah, as you know, as now all the hysterias, of losing in the Champions League final and stuff, that, as it's dying down. If you look at some of them players, what you said, like the Laporte and even the likes of Mendy, you can think, yeah, they will be unhappy. So you can see Pep shuffling even the likes of Sterling out.
Mendy's actually one of the happiest guys. That's why Guardiola likes Mendy so much, because he doesn't play, but he's really happy in the dressing room, and he encourages the other guys. And he's like, right, come on, guys, have a good game today, kind of thing. Whereas some of them, they just put their hoods up, they're on their phone, they haven't got the best attitude. And this is one of the things that, Fernandinho needs to manage. That's why Guardiola appreciates Fernandinho so much. So it's difficult because we don't really know too much about how dressing rooms work. So when you hear unhappy players, you think, oh, God, disaster. Or you think this journalist is talking shit or whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, that was one swear. I won't do it again.
Oh, we'll let you slip.
It was
the
a
odd
B-list
swear
swear
word
word.
in
It
the
wasn't one of the worst ones. But yeah, I can appreciate, and especially after the Champions League final, you think, oh, they're just jumping on the negativity. But the only thing that would have changed if they'd won it was I'd probably just done it later in the week, because today probably would have been another article how great they are, and then Wednesday would have been, by the way, this is how great they are, this is how they're going to do it, and it would have been, these are the players that could go, blah blah blah.
So
well, I had a conversation today, Sam, with a Villa fan who has it on fairly good authority that we're 99.9% sure of getting Grealish in the summer. I'm interested in your thoughts on that and whether you've heard anything similar.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard a few of those ones about Kane as well, but I couldn't say if it was 99% sure. But from what I've heard, you know, he was up for joining United last summer, but now it's City. You know, if he goes anywhere, he wants to go to City. I think City like him, but what needs to happen is they need to let somebody go to make that happen. And I don't know if that's just financial or it's space in the squad, because obviously if you bring in a Grealish, it's all, you know, Pep's already got 6 or 7 players who can't get in the team anyway. He's not going to want to add another one onto that. So I think it depends on somebody going, and it wouldn't surprise me if it was at that stage. You know, everything was agreed, because this time of year, City fans get everything agreed with the agents and the players, and it just comes down to the final details. But so it wouldn't surprise me if it was 99% sure, but then maybe that last percent is something, you know, whether it's Sterling or Mahrez is another one. I guess with Mahrez, it's just an age thing. I don't know if Mahrez is unhappy, but I think he's one they would consider selling. But I don't think they're going to end up selling 4 or 5 because it's too difficult.
Anne-Marie's grinning there. She absolutely loves Mahrez, but yeah, you know,
he's been really good this season. But with 2 years left, it might make sense.
Yeah, I think he's been one of our better players. Yeah, but
may I ask one question? Sorry, regarding these transfers and stuff. I can, you know, I get why Laporte and Jesus can be unhappy, but Sterling, what is he unhappy about? Do you have any insight on that?
Yeah,
what's his issue?
Well, I mean, he plays, but he plays when Foden's being rested. You know, he plays when Guardiola's not picking the team that played in all the big Champions League games. So for example, I looked at Mahrez's I was looking at Mahrez because I was going to write an article about him before the final, about how good he's been. And I was looking at his Premier League appearances, assuming, you know, he'd scored a load of goals in the last few weeks of the season. But he's barely played in the last few weeks in the Premier League, because it was all about the Champions League, wasn't it? It was all about those big games. And Sterling's dropped out of those games. But one thing I do think I know from inside the camp, but also don't get personally, is it comes back to, you know, when he was left out of the Fulham game and there was that row with Pep.
Yeah.
When there was a mad rumor posted on Twitter on the Sunday, which he denied, but that was the mad one. And like the less mad verdict was, as far as I know, true. But he complained then that he said, you know, some players play badly and they still get in the team, whereas he plays badly and he comes out, which I thought, the cheek of you to say that. Because I know a lot of people last season in particular wanted Sterling to be dropped in like January, February time. I mean, I remember making the point that he was doing everything off the ball and he was still getting in the great positions. He was still working really hard. And also, there was no other left winger last year, was there? Foden wasn't playing on the left wing. Sane was injured. So I could see why he was in the team. But I believe that's his gripe, you know, that he's lost his place, and also he was annoyed back then.
You're right. It's damn cheek from Sterling, in my opinion, Sam, because, you know, when Sterling first joined us, he didn't really come in and set the world on fire. It was only when Pep got hold of him and made him into a really, really decent player. And now, because he's gone backwards a little bit, Sterling, you know, if anything, he should be, you know, not coming out with stupid comments and stuff like that. I know he denied a lot of it, but, you know, normally there's no smoke without fire. I just think Pep's lost a little bit of confidence in him.
Yeah, I think so. Well,
especially with the emergence of
put him in for the final, didn't he? I mean, this is the thing. Like, put him in for the final, and obviously Guardiola knows the situation with Raheem, and you know the kind of confrontation they had a couple of months ago, but kept putting him in and kept giving him chances and put him in the final. So I could appreciate people who are watching this thinking, how can that be the case? And you might not want to believe it for that case, but
you know, nobody can suss Pep out. Right,
but I mean, but you're right. Like he kept going to Foden, didn't he? For the big games, he kept going to Foden, and then for whatever reason, at the weekend.
Foden's produced, you know, it's
been brilliant.
it's unlimited how far that lad can go, you know, because he's emerged absolutely. I always had the feeling that he couldn't play directly in midfield, but he's blown that one. You can put him right, left, up front. You could probably put him in net as well, because he's even played ball boy during his City career, hasn't he? You know, that's where he started off. So yeah, I think he's a big one for the Euros as well, Foden. I think he could be
he is
player of the tournament.
Yeah, potentially.
Right, Sam. We appreciate your time, buddy. As always, we'll link your podcast and everything as well. Attach it to this one when it goes out.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, much appreciated you joining us, pal.
Well, yeah, thanks very much, and thanks for giving me so much airtime as well. I feel bad for talking more than everybody else.
No, you're absolutely fine. It's a pleasure, pal.
No, anytime. Thanks a lot. Thanks, guys. It's a pleasure.
Bye bye.
Cheers. Bye bye.